Oklahoma. And he's Jeff Dismukes. We're glad to be with you on a Wednesday night. Mr. Dismukes has a great show lined up for us tonight. Our top line topic is going to be, Mr. Dismukes, fill in the blank.
Well, we're going to be talking about a couple of things. Yesterday was I can't do the math in my head quick enough, but for going back to 1973 was when the last combat troops left Vietnam. It was actually Vietnam Veterans Day yesterday. And I think that kind of prompted with me in discussion and everything that's going on right now with Ukraine. I read some articles over the weekend in a couple of different publications talking about triggers for veterans, PTSD, several different things that are being stirred with the coverage that we have on this and the images that we're seeing. I thought it was a really good time to talk about veterans health. And actually, it's always a good time to talk about veterans health, veterans behavioral health. And we have a group out of Tulsa and an individual, Stacy Hester, who I've become friends with over the last couple of years now, met him and all the incredible things that they are doing. I want to talk about that a little bit, just about his organization, Eagle Ops, what they're doing and how they're engaging and helping veterans across Oklahoma find connections, find relationships, find opportunities to live the best possible life. And really, that's what we need to be doing. And then at the bottom of the hour, I'm going to bring on an individual, Oklahoma City attorney. And so I don't know if you remember a few shows back, we brought on Reggie Whitten, another attorney. Maybe there's a theme to this with attorneys. I don't know. But individuals who are really making a difference in Oklahoma. Pete Schaffer is going to join us. Kaiser's grateful bean. Some people really know him for that. Not so much as an attorney, but the ice cream guy. And anybody around Oklahoma City knows Kaiser's. But Pete really kind of has an interesting outlook on life, really demonstrates compassion and caring for others. And he's a big believer in second chances. And I want to talk about that. He's also on the board of the Depression Bipolar Support Alliance of Oklahoma, which is actually where I first met him. And I think it's a great thing to be talking about what he is doing and what his efforts are making happen across Oklahoma.
It's going to be a good program. We've got a couple of extras, a couple of announcements. We'll do that kind of at the bottom of the hour. Speaker Mccall's episode, which generally runs on Monday night because of scheduling difficulties, is going to be in the second half of the hour. You got that exclusive. It's only here on Mitchell Talks. There's 9 News on 6 and with Jeff Dismukes. So we're going to talk about that. Right off the top, though, I saw at 5 o'clock there was a file this under of what goes around. Saw Dr. Dale Bratzler as part of the Fab Four, which is here once a month with Dr. Larry Bookman. And this was just something that grabbed right off the top since we're Health Watch Oklahoma and My Mind Matters, the whole thing we've been talking about for, going on now, as Dr. Bookman said last week, 4 years for he and I. We've been talking about health issues. This was Dale Bratzler just about an hour ago with Carl Torp. Let me just give you, Jeff, you'll just love this. Let me just take a real quick, see what Dr. Bratzler said. Maybe you recognize what he's talking about, tongue-in-cheek here. Well, I wish it was tongue-in-cheek.
One of Oklahoma's top COVID doctors says that cases of the more contagious Omicron subvariant have gone up substantially. The latest data shows the BA.2 variant makes up almost half of all new COVID cases reported in our region.
Meaning that this new very contagious variant is in Oklahoma. It is spreading. Will spread easily through people, particularly those who are unvaccinated.
Dr. Bratzler says elderly Oklahomans and those with underlying risk factors or chronic illness should get the second booster vaccine.
So if you dodged the Grim Reaper once, twice, 3 times, he said, did you notice what he said, Jeff? It will spread rapidly through the unvaccinated. So anyway, people have to make up their minds. And, if you can just keep on rolling those dice and come up with the right numbers.
I know I'm getting my 4th. I keep telling everybody I'm going to have Spidey powers before it's all said and done. I don't care as long as I don't have COVID.
That's exactly right. Okay, so we are now into the program. So we got an announcement. We got the speaker coming up and 2 great guests with Jeff Dismukes. Mr. Dismukes, take it away.
Well, let's go ahead and bring our first guest, Stacy Hester from Eagle Ops over in Tulsa. So Stacy, I kind of struggle anymore in how to introduce you. I just, we've known each other for almost 2 years now. First chance I got. So, I need to, so for people who haven't been around Stacy, I meet this bundle of energy. I mean, it's nothing but energy, energy and positive. You can't help whenever you talk to Stacy, but going away feeling really good about everything in your life. He's always asking about what's going on in your life and always trying to make a difference. But Stacy, we want to talk a little bit about Eagle Ops tonight, and I'm going to start with because I'll butcher when we start talking about it. I'll talk about all these things, but I really want you to talk about Eagle Ops. And before we do anything, what is Eagle Ops? What are you doing? What are you trying to accomplish?
Well, what Eagle Ops is, it's a non-profit. It's a 501c3 operating in Northeast Oklahoma, around the Tulsa area. It really leverages. We were founded by 3 folks: myself, Stacy Hester, Jonathan Shepard, also a Marine Corps veteran, Jessica Shepard, his wife, and she is also the daughter of a triple Purple Heart recipient from Vietnam. So a lot of what we do is truly based on some of our own experiences, and then my own journey, running a consulting company, training veterans treatment courts all around the country, the opportunity to interface with many other organizations, to include obviously our justice system with veterans who become justice involved. All of that really led into the heart and the passion behind starting Eagle Ops, to support our veterans. Yes, to combat veteran suicide, which we do that, Jeff, in partnership with you guys at Oklahoma Department of Mental Health, an incredible mission that we're totally pumped about and thrilled to be a part of. And then just assisting our veterans in the journey home, or what we often call the battle for home, so that they're not just surviving the day-to-day. And this is often a reality, a cultural normative or cultural reality for service members on the other side of active duty, is that we go so far into the shadows of isolation that we're just surviving from day to day and not thriving. Our mission statement at Eagle Ops is connecting relationships, to resources to bring our heroes home, one operation at a time. And so we are passionate on the front side of that about connecting relationships, which we do through our rally points, which also leverage part of my journey and experience as an active duty Marine tied to our reconnaissance elements. So we mobilize those rally points as a space where we can get service members, veterans, and their families to show up, so that we build healthy community, healthy relationships. And then through those, we're very active at getting veterans connected, especially to the VA, because that connection, when we get veterans connected to the VA, we reduce suicide, according to the VA's own research, by 70%. So we're in the good fight.
Let's talk about that for a little bit. We talk about VA and certainly a lot of discussion. I don't know that everybody, unless you've been engaged with the military, if you're part of a military family, kind of understand what we talk about when we're really speaking about veterans. And some of the programs that we're talking about, you and I work together on, we're really talking about Oklahomans who have served. So I think there is some thought that when a veteran comes home, and a broad definition of veteran, that services are immediately waiting for that individual, that they know exactly where to go, exactly what to do. Let's talk about that just a little bit.
Yeah, it's when we look at some of the cultural normatives, again, from our service members, that really is where some of the barrier comes to play on the forefront. What I mean is, when you're in the military, and this, Jeff, is why we teach military culture at Eagle Ops, which is an opportunity for the entire community. We open that up to the community, because if we want to understand some of these resource connections, some of the research-based elements of challenges that service members face in their transition, we have to understand the culture that's informing the data and the research around our veterans. So those cultures between military and civilian sector are there's a vast chasm between those two experientially. What that results in, to keep it short, is veterans coming home and isolating. And because we're isolating, we're not even going after actively are pursuing those resources that are available. Example, a VA released a study in 2018, and this ties right into our mission statement. 2018 study released by the VA that showed 84% of our veterans who were diagnosed with major depressive disorder was tied to loneliness. And that's that isolation factor. You can't pursue those resources or getting connected to the VA when you're isolating up in your home, or you start to go down a trajectory or a path of self-medicating, where you're sitting in bars and self-medicating, and you're isolated from the world out there because of a distrust between those with whom we serve and civilians. And to make a statement of candor, Jeff, I still remember this to this day, when I went through United States Marine Corps boot camp, that our drill instructor said to us, and here you go, here's a reference point to the chasm that exists between military and the civilian side of even trusting non-military on the other side. Our drill instructor said, do not trust civilians. They're undisciplined and have no respect for authority. And so there's a chasm being fostered actively already in the military. There's a purpose, obviously, behind that in the context of the warrior, in the mindset that we have to assume to be a warrior in the military to accomplish, the mission that we have. But what that results in is transitional challenges that are often resulting in the taking of our own lives. And that's the tragedy. The isolation is what is killing us. It's why we're not getting connected to the resources.
Well, let's talk about that just a little bit with that. And you mentioned suicide. The numbers that involves in Oklahoma, as far as veterans, we're a state with a large number of veterans in the population. Certainly a state that's proud to serve, and that also has meant, because of some of these problems, the isolation when people come back, we also see high rates of suicide with veterans. So let's talk about that a little bit, and then let's talk about what Eagle Ops is doing, and kind of how, I think, a very unique way of the way you're reaching out and connecting.
Sure. I'd like to throw out there too, before we do touch points on the suicide, just some things that balance out the data as we start to look at that, because data can be tricky. The national average of service to country is 0.41%, which is less than 0.5% of the entire nation volunteer to serve this country within the context of the Department of Defense. Oklahoma's average varies from 9.5 to 9.8% of our population volunteer to serve in the military. This is an incredible disparity between what the national average is and what Oklahoma's average is. What does that translate to? What does that mean? Well, we have 250,000 veterans who are service members who are transitioning annually from active duty, from the service. When you look at data around our service members transitioning, so that 250,000 number, when you look at things like 30%, now this data point that I'm giving right here, I pulled this probably 4 to 5 years ago, so it could be outdated, but I think it's probably not far off from this. But somewhere around 30% of service members transitioning had legal issues. Well, when you look at that number relative to the national average of service to country, 0.41% of those 250,000 transitioning, and the 9+ % of Oklahomans who volunteer to serve in the military, we have a serious or significant battle for home, as we call it at Eagle Ops, when it comes to our service members and helping them integrate, not reintegrate, but integrate back into society. Because when you look at the reality of data numbers too, to those who go into the military, 17, 18, 19, we never integrated into a normal society, normal role and responsibilities of an American citizen to begin with. We went straight from mom and dad's home, straight into the military, where you go through a social engineering process. We never integrated to begin with. So that integration, as you start to look at those numbers, and I mean, like you said, Jeff, like I've had the fortune and the joy, man, of being able to work with you for a couple of years now. And I feel your heart and passion too. I could quote data all day long about what that data means, draw correlations that create challenges for service members, even when it comes to onboarding to higher education, which is a societal demand. But what about the warrior who lived through a traumatic brain injury? And what does that translate to from a cultural context where we lived with the idea that pain is weakness leaving the body, so we don't talk about it? So I'm going to fail a couple of exams at a institution of higher education, and rather than address that and focus on it and try to deal with it and get help, I'm just going to drift further into the shadows, which can lead to social cognition, which is the level that we start thinking of criminogenically straight up. And this is a tragedy and is a travesty. When we get to the place where our isolation is so deeply embedded as veterans and start to move in that direction of social cognition, we're now starting to have criminogenic thinking patterns. Not that that's a plan or a plot, that's just the frame of direction. Going out self-medicating, drinking alcohol, that might land us, involved within the justice system and then pleading into a veterans treatment court in our communities or abroad. So is that a good segue to kind of move into what we're doing at Eagle Ops?
Yeah, that works. So let's talk specifically about, and you brought up the veterans courts. We might have to come back and visit that on another day, because I think that's another topic that is really interesting and people need to know about. But let's start a little bit with the suicide prevention, the outreach that you're doing right now, and how you're really making a difference in lives. Okay,
great. We have two campaigns at Eagle Ops that are currently going on. Again, one, Jeff, thank you to you and the entire team at Oklahoma Department of Mental Health for originally reaching out to Eagle Ops and saying, hey, here's a project that we're looking at, and we want to partner with an organization that can lead from the front on this. That project is a campaign directly focusing on preventing and combating veteran suicide. That project is called Stay in the Fight. And so we really leverage military culture in all that we do in trying to combat veteran suicide in our state. That campaign involves outreach to our local area, statewide gun shops, where we're forging partnerships with those gun shops to disseminate marketing information within those retailer shops that has the campaign title, Stay in the Fight. It has some baseline information about what it is. And then on the back of the cards that we have, that we give to those retail shops, has the Eagle Ops oath. Why does that matter? Why does an oath matter? We're talking about our veterans, right? We took an oath when we raised our right hand. And that oath basically entailed a promise to our fellow Americans that we would defend with our very lives the ideas enshrined within our Constitution and that are visibly represented in the United States American flag, that we would be willing to choose death to protect life behind us. That oath is written upon the beat of our hearts as warriors. And we come home and we look at all of the reality around veteran suicide. We created an oath at Eagle Ops. And that oath that we do leverages that culture that we took an oath at one time. But this oath is a promise that we will choose life. And that oath is written on every one of those rack cards that anyone that walks into these gun shops can take. And what that oath reads, and we read it at every single rally point that we have, Jeff. And it reads this: I promise to my fellow service members, veterans, and family that when facing my demons, I will not take my own life, but I will reach out to my battle buddy, because the battle cannot be won alone. And at our rally points, we have little bitty cards, just about the size of a credit card and about the rigidity of a credit card. And on the front of that card, it says, reach one more. On the back of that card is the oath that I just read you, with a place for anyone, veteran, service member, family member, or a patriot, to put their name and their number and to give that card to another veteran in the community or a veteran family member, and to take that same oath with them. So the marketing campaign component of Stay in the Fight All of that is going out to our gun shops around the state to bridge those partnerships and setting up a table for outreach to bring awareness and visibility at gun shows like the Wanamaker Gun Show for sure, which is a huge one, but other gun shows to where we can. We know veterans are going to gun shops. We know veterans are going to gun shows. So we want to get that information out there, as well as we have a campaign where we talk about this project, Jeff, with the community. And anyone, of course, is invited to this every other Thursday. And we do this tomorrow. Jonathan, Jessica, and I go live on Facebook every other Thursday at 9:30 a.m. And that campaign is called Locked On and Live with the Founders, where we address community-related issues relative specifically to our veterans, any updates that we get through our partnership with the VA, and just what's going on in the community. So we do updates, and we talk about this campaign with you guys at Oklahoma Department of Mental Health, Stay in the Fight, and we promote it. And with it also, right now, every quarter, the last Thursday of every single quarter, we have planned trainings. One that goes on during the day for folks who even work in positions that their employers would allow them to participate in the training, and then one in the evening for folks who wouldn't be able to get out of work. And that's pursuant to this campaign as well, Stay in the Fight. And we do 2 training modules each time. Module 1 is military culture. So providing that baseline, if you want to understand the data around suicide, come learn who our veterans are. We want to let you know what the culture that is informing the data around suicide is, so that when we give you the suicide prevention training, we're giving you not only the tools to mitigate suicide, but even deeper, we're giving you tools in how to leverage military cultural elements so that you can help a veteran stay in the fight, so that, and yourself as well, so that you can help others stay in the fight through that culture. So we do that military culture, and then suicide prevention, 8 trainings on the calendar. And it's open also for organizations that want to reach out to us and RSVP. Organizations can request us to come in and do that training.
That's another good. Oh, I'm sorry. That's another really good point. You're connected with many different veterans organizations across the state. One of the things I've learned from you is that there is an entire network of community-based veterans program, usually started by veterans, reaching out specifically to veterans and providing all these different resources. You guys are also a conduit to that, as far as being able to go through and link to what's happening around the state. But the other thing I'd kind of like, so we talked about the program, kind of what's the feedback been so far? So I don't even think you and I've had this discussion. What kind of feedback are you getting so far on the campaign? Because I remember when we talked about this, this is an innovative approach. We're going out a different way to get there. And you told me, you said this is going to really be successful. And I have been very happy with the response that I've seen. But why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, well, I'll speak to that from a direct boots on the ground interface. For example, one of the most recent inroads that we won, which I think you even saw me do that particular post on Facebook, Jeff, with 2A here in Tulsa. I was able to get a connection in with them. And as soon as I just gave them kind of some of the baseline intel on what this project Stay in the Fight is, with respect to, and this is an important point, I believe, and I talk about it in the PSA video that we shot and produced with Ghost Marketing, who partners with you guys. The firearms side of that, Oklahoma is actually the leading state in the nation where a firearm becomes the mechanism for a veteran taking his or her own life. And so when I shared our mission, who we are as an organization, Eagle Ops, that what our mission is, what the fight is, there was no hesitation. They were like, absolutely, we want to get behind that. We will support that. Why is that important? Well, that's important because there's so much concern, even with our veterans, right? The warriors who have served this country, who part of that oath included, did not exclude, but included the Second Amendment to defend the whole Constitution, right? there's lots of conversation out there that goes on around that and around concerns, even with diagnoses around post-traumatic stress. What is that going to mean for the veteran who fought to defend also the Second Amendment, among other things? And then gun shops factor into that, right? How? Conversationally. But a lot of people, and I've been interfacing with other states on this subject matter, Jeff, too, in terms of building and forging partnerships with gun shops to be able to get the message out there of what we're battling, what we're fighting, and why it's a good fight to be in together. A lot of folks probably think, oh, well, gun shops aren't, they're going to, oh, no, we don't want any of that. That is not true. They understand that there's a tragedy of suicide around our veterans. And as a subgroup within our population, that the number of veteran suicides is a tragedy, if not the highest demographic group in the nation where suicides are happening. So forging those partnerships is being well received, number one. Number two, the folks who are going through the trainings. And I think this is a poignant point on even teaching military culture, where through the training of culture and in suicide prevention, we're bridging the gap. We're bridging information between the culture that informs the data and then the tools to mitigate, combat, and prevent a veteran suicide. We've had veterans approach us, veterans after the training, who have said, you guys bridged information for us that we never even connected. As a veteran, literally the last training that we just did, Jeff, a week ago, I had a veteran come up to me and just and break down right in front of me after the training and say, you made connections for me that I wish I had had before, because I believe my best friend would still be here today.
My God. See, and that's why what you're doing is so incredibly important, Stacy. And I know where your heart is on this, which is why I'm glad we were able to bring you on. Before we end, I want to make sure people know how to access you and Eagle Ops. Tell us real quick, how can people follow you, and how can people find out more, and how can they reach you for help?
Two ways. Our website is a great resource, you guys. www.eagleops.org. Hopefully Scott can even throw that link up there through the platform. eagleops.org. On that platform, if you go to our resources tab, there's a drop-down window, and there is a link to the training that we do, the military culture training, as well as the suicide prevention. Those we look at those as one training. They're two different training modules, but they're one training that we bridge together. And you can RSVP through that link that's there. The other way to reach us is through social media. Facebook is where we really try to drive visibility. So you can go to facebook.com/EagleOps1, or you can just get on your Facebook page, type in the search bar, Eagle Ops. You'll know it's us because the banner on our Facebook page says reach one more. And under our Facebook page is a tab called events. All of our rally points that happen in the community. We have rally points, as you know, Jeff, every single week. There is no reason for all of our service members, veterans, their families, and patriots out there. We offer rally points weekly for you to be able to come and join us in the battle for home so that we can end veteran suicide and help our veterans to thrive, as well as their families and communities, and not just survive. So that is where you can find all of our rally points. One other platform that's big, especially for our Vietnam veterans, you can text the word Eagle to 51660. We send one text reminder for each major rally point that we have in the community for those who are not on social media. So
that's fantastic. I mean, you're making an incredible difference in Oklahoma. I don't know if I've told you that before, but what you're doing is so very special. And as a son of a disabled vet and with a family that has served, this means a great deal to me. what you're doing and the ability to help so many people. Thanks so much for joining us tonight, Stacy.
Yeah. Stacy, would you go through those? I was not able to get those up in comments. I did get eagleops.org, but go back through the social media one more time.
Okay. So the direct link to our Facebook page would be facebook.com/Eagle Ops OPS and 1, the digit, not spelled out, but facebook.com/Eagle Ops 1. And that's the main. I mean, we do have a YouTube page. We have an Instagram and a Twitter, but we really try to drive folks to our Facebook page because that's where you really, really see us and learn more about our rally points.
All right. Stacy, thank you, bud.
Jeff, I love you, brother. You have
love you.
a passion to join us, and the fact that you guys partnered with Eagle Ops. And really, you guys really hear what we communicate in the terms of culture. And I know that's why you brought us on to partner for this project. But I know your heart, dude. Love you, man.
Yeah.
Scott, thank you, man, for having us on here. So it's a big deal.
It is a huge deal. And all thanks to you and the staff, what they're trying to do. This is a movie, and it's really awesome. And you can tell there's steel in your words and the deeds. So thank you so very much. And overcoming Dismukes is one of those. I've been trying to overcome him for 25 years, and I can't because he's so good.
It's kind of hard
because he's so good. So, all right, best of luck. I hope to see you again real soon.
We'd love to be back.
Okay,
see
thanks,
you,
Stacy.
Yes.
Pretty neat guy. He's been. I've really been fortunate. I've met some really interesting people over the years and established some really cool friendships. And he's something. He is nothing but energy and positive, and doing some incredible things, which kind of leads us to our next guest.
It sure does. Let me tell people at the bottom of the hour, wherever we're at right now. If you have a comment or question, go ahead and send it in, or you can send it to me on my email, scott@mitchelltalks.com. And as we said at the top there, we've got an announcement. It has to do with the county detention center and a bond issue coming up. And we'll tell you about that in just a few minutes. And then the speaker podcast, which will be at the end of our next discussion. And you got a great guest. Now, you teased him a little at the top of the hour, Jeff, and here he is.
Talked about him. There he is, Pete Schaffer.
Hello, Pete.
Hi, Scott. Hi, Jeff. Glad to be here.
This is Oklahoman making a difference. That's it. And just incredible what Pete's doing besides just ice cream, which ice cream's pretty darn important. But
before you run past ice cream,
yeah,
let's talk about that for just 1 second. So, the type of ice cream that you have. I mean, ice cream. You scream. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get into that. What are your flavors right now?
We have a multitude of flavors at Kaiser's Grateful Bean. We basically have made about 150 different flavors. That's a lot of flavors. But the biggest sellers, not surprisingly, are vanilla chocolate strawberry, and perhaps less surprisingly, salted caramel.
Not surprised at that. I'm not.
I had some of that recently. It's pretty darn good.
The secret comes out now, doesn't it?
Yeah, this is the deal. This is all really about me trying to get Pete to get me some ice cream. And
we'll do that anytime. That's very easy.
Well,
all right. Jeff, take her away.
Well, again, Oklahoma's making a difference. So we talked about Kaiser's Grateful Bean, which is a special place, and the ice cream is incredible. But there's another component to this that I really wanted to kind of visit, and it's your business model, which seems a little different than other business models. And it's a business model that really is about compassion. It's about second chances. It's about helping people to get ahead and doing the right thing in the community. And so I wanted to talk about that a little bit and just what is your purpose? What's the purpose? What's the business model for Kaiser's?
Our mission, Jeff and Scott, is to provide an opportunity for people to be employed, learn skills, for people who have been down on their luck. It's a second chance. And all of us at one time or another need a second chance. It doesn't matter whether we are using the term that's customarily used, successful in life, or the opposite thereof at times. It's an opportunity.
Absolutely. And, we've been talking a lot on this show. We've talked about criminal justice involvement and mental health and substance use issues. We have talked about the jail project. And one of the things that keeps coming up on this is that concept of second chance. And when we talk about recovery and behavioral health, we talk about the ability to get back to work, the ability to lead your best life. And that's what you're doing. And that's what your purpose is. How are you seeing the response to this as far as individuals who are coming in, changes in life? How is this? Do you see this as really helping to make a difference in Oklahoma City and really across Oklahoma?
Whether it helps to make a difference or not is really dependent, in my opinion, upon what the individual who's coming in seeks to accomplish. It's a little bit like Alice in Wonderland, where Alice is going down the path, and Alice comes to a fork in the road, and there's the Cheshire Cat sitting on a branch. And Alice says to the Cheshire Cat, "Would you tell me, please, which way to go from here? Do I, in effect, take the path on the right, or do I take the path on the left?" And the Cheshire Cat says, "It depends a good deal on where you would like to get to." And Alice says, "I don't know where I want to get to." And the Cheshire Cat says, "Then it really doesn't matter what path you take." People who come to the Grateful Bean, Kaiser's Grateful Bean Cafe, who have been down on their luck, and that includes people out of the penitentiary, people out of the county jail, people who have been homeless, people out of drug rehab, alcohol rehab, the housewife who has never worked a day in her entire life and now has to because her husband has run off with the office floozy, now wants to work. If a person chooses to get something out of an experience, that's fantastic. Many people don't really know why they are there. Obviously, we need to earn a living. Our job at Kaiser's Grateful Bean Cafe is to seek to instill that what we are doing here at that cafe is meaningful, not meaningless. It's more than earning an hourly wage. It's more than earning a living. We're not only serving the general public, but we're serving each other. And what we're serving and what we seek to serve is dignity and respect. Wow. That's really the bottom line. It's not particularly complicated. The complicated part, not only for the individuals who are employed at Kaiser's Grateful Bean Cafe, but for me also, when I look in the mirror, I say to myself, are you doing at this moment what you feel you need to do? And if the answer to that is perhaps, then another question is, what can you do to make it more definite that what you feel that you are doing is making a difference to the people around you, for yourself, and the community?
Okay. So what gives you, where does this come from? What gives you this type of insight and understanding about people? I mean, you obviously, you see people as people. You don't see labels. You see a need to give back to others. Where does this come from?
That's a really, really good question. When Ralph Nader spoke in Norman, maybe 25 years ago, in an exhaustive speech for about 3.5 hours, one of the members of the audience asked that exact question. Where does your energy come from? Where does your direction come from? And what Ralph Nader said is, my mother has asked me the same thing, but she frames it differently. And the way she frames it is, why doesn't everyone have the energy that my son has, and the caring and the concern? Anyway, I'm not exactly sure where it comes from, but if I do have it, I feel very lucky.
So I've seen this with you in other areas. So we have a mutual friend, George Crooks.
Good old George Crooks.
George Crooks from Depression Bipolar Support Alliance. You know, one of the stories that George constantly tells me is about a lot of people don't realize that he was at Stanford in the late 60s and early 70s. He was a left tackle on the football team with Jim Plunkett behind him. And George tells me that it was because of George that Jim Plunkett won the Heisman Trophy, and that Jim Plunkett owes him his career. Just think George likes to bring that up as often as possible.
All right.
But the George and I, he's the one who introduced me to you, and you're part of the board of DBSA. And so I think we need to let's talk about DBSA a little bit too, as we go through this and your efforts there. And as we see DBSA making a difference across Oklahoma, what kind of drew you there, and how are you kind of transferring your vision of life there into helping with that organization?
George and I had met before George asked me if I would consider joining DBSA. George is a very, very rare and special individual.
Isn't
he? He just exudes compassion, and people can feel that. He's very involved. I think one of the hardest things to do, I'm not doing it right now, is to listen to what someone else is saying. In a book that was written 5 or 6 years ago, the author poses a question, and the question is, what is the opposite of talking? And the author says, before you turn this page, I want you to consider the answer. And so when I read that, I said, the opposite of talking obviously is listening. I turned the page, and the author said, if you think the opposite of talking is listening, you're wrong. In America, the opposite of talking is waiting, meaning waiting for the other person to keep quiet so that we can explain to them what we feel and what our opinion happens to be on a given subject. George is one of those very, very rare people who listens so intently that you can feel his concern. It's palpable. So George had asked whether I would be interested in joining the board of DBSA. This was probably about 8 or 10 years ago. And I said, I'd be very, very interested. And I've been on the board for that number of years. There are volunteers who act as facilitators in peer-to-peer groups. George and Jeannie at the office facilitate that, organize that. George is very, very active. George's phone is ringing constantly. And George interrupts whatever he is doing to answer the phone with someone who has a concern, whether it is a consumer or it's a facilitator. DBSA, through George, does an incredible amount of good. I just say, thank God for George Crooks.
Yeah. George has been an incredible friend. I've learned so much from him over the years and what DBSA does. Able to find for listeners who want to learn more about DBSA, you can find him online, DBSA Oklahoma, Facebook page, and also a Twitter account to follow what they're doing. And there's incredible work across Oklahoma where you have individuals with lived experience who are helping others navigate the processes of recovery. And it is a process, particularly for depression and bipolar disorder. It is often very helpful to be able to talk to others who have had similar experiences and be able to make a difference. And DBSA, so the compassion, you're right, George is an incredibly compassionate individual. Obviously you are. kind of where do you see us going as our needs with everything happening today? Just kind of Pete Schaffer's advice to Oklahoma. What is it that we need to do as far as second chances and understanding people as people?
That's a great segue into where are we?
Mm-hmm.
And going back to Alice in Wonderland, where we would like to go. If I had a magic wand, which I don't, but if I did, I would hope that that magic wand would be used to build compassion for others who may appear to be different than we are. We're all in this same boat together, and what we do affects each other. So compassion, listening, perhaps less opinion giving might be very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I strive for in myself. I have 2 adult daughters, and what I have learned is not to give my opinion unless I am specifically asked for my opinion, because unsolicited opinions, I have found, is about as welcome as screaming on an elevator full of people. That's not the exact expression, but that's close enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think my son reminds me about my unwanted opinions constant. You have to learn. I'm trying to get better. So as kind of we move forward, also with Grateful Bean, with Kaiser's Grateful Bean, people want to learn more about that, want to learn about employment opportunities, want to learn about what they can do to support and where to find you, how to find Kaiser's, and tell us a little bit about your operating hours, how to find all that. The long drawn out type of, it wasn't a question. I don't know. It just had a lot of points, but bring it.
Okay.
If you could tell us how to access everything.
Kaiser's is located at the roundabout, as it is called in Oklahoma City, at Walker and 10th. So there are 5 streets that meet there, 5 points on the intersection. It's a very interesting intersection, by the way. Fascinating. And Kaiser's is open Tuesday through Saturday, 12 noon to 6 p.m. We used to be open 7 days a week, but for some strange reason, people don't like to work 7 days a week. And so we've reduced our hours. It's profoundly difficult right now in the labor market, even for people who would like to come in and have a second chance. There are second chances available in many, many different avenues here in Oklahoma City, in the service industries, the hospitality industries. So that's where it's located. Those are our hours. We're also on Facebook, Kaiser's Grateful Bean Cafe. The building itself, just a little aside, the building, in my opinion, is one of the queen buildings of Oklahoma City. It's over 100 years old. It's on the National Register of Historic Places. It is an absolutely beautiful building with the stained glass, the old motif, the old-fashioned soda fountain, the soda fountain draft arms to make the sodas. It's a significant step back in time.
Wow.
Let's talk about hamburgers now.
As a vegetarian, I know very little about hamburgers.
Are you still doing the bison burgers?
No, we are not.
Okay.
Would you like to know why?
Yes, I do.
Okay. First of all, bison burgers, bison meat is profoundly expensive compared to, for example, Angus beef, profoundly expensive. It's also very, very dry, very little fat, very lean.
It is very lean.
It's very difficult to cook properly. And if a person is paying a substantial surcharge for a buffalo burger, it had better be incredibly well prepared, which is difficult to do. That's one of the reasons we took it off the menu.
And with the labor shortage, I understand all restaurants, having a lot of friends in those businesses, how difficult this past 24 or 26 months have been. Really difficult. Well, I got one other quick question that is irrelevant. The two chairs behind you in front of your desk, they could be as old as the building. No, I love them. Where did they come from? You know what?
That is really funny. There were some young kids that were selling chocolate to raise money for their school, and they came into the office and they said, we would like to raise money for so-and-so school project. And they looked around my particular office and they noticed those chairs that you're talking about. And one of them said, it looks like you need the money more than we do so that you can replace those chairs. And those chairs are probably about 70 years old. They come from an Oklahoma City attorney, Barney Miller, who is deceased now. Everyone's heard of Barney Miller, not necessarily because they've heard of the attorney Barney Miller of Oklahoma City, but they may have heard of the program on television, Barney Miller. So anyway, that's where they came from. And they are quite
beautiful.
They are. They're great.
Well, Pete, thanks for all you do. And by the way,
Jeff, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Has your parking situation improved down there?
It has not improved at all. And it is what it is. People park basically where they want to park, regardless of what signage says. And if someone is really interested in coming to Kaiser's Grateful Bean Cafe, they will find a place to park. It's not particularly complicated in that regard. It requires extra energy. That's absolutely true. We have 2 parking spaces where we used to have 8. One of the parking spaces is for handicapped, and the other parking space is now dedicated for electric vehicles. That was a joint project of St. Anthony Hospital, the city of Oklahoma City, Baker Brothers Electric, and Kaiser's Grateful Bean Cafe. It's the only electric vehicle charging station on city property that's available to the general public for the 4-letter magic word, free.
Wow. I'll have to let Secretary Ming, who drives electric vehicles, former Energy Secretary Ming, who just did a series on EVs. So, well, regardless of the parking situation, people have been finding your place, and we appreciate everything that you do, Pete.
Thank you so much, Scott. Thank you so much, Jeff. Keep up the good.
Pete. Thanks, Pete.
Very grateful.
Thanks again.
Thanks again also.
All right. Bye-bye. Okay. I've got one more announcement, and we're going to go right into, as we said, I'm poaching on Dismukes territory tonight because we couldn't get the speaker's version of his podcast on Monday night. But it's interesting because we talk a little bit about, it's about a 9-minute piece. We talk a little bit about the week because, it's a different week because all the big activities shifted over to the Senate, and we'll be watching how that's all going to shift after the last couple of weeks. Here's this week with the Speaker, Charles Mccall. Hello, Mr. Speaker. It's definitely a different vibe at the Capitol this week than last week. A lot of the House work's gone over to the Senate. What's it like out there where you really reset sort of halftime?
Scott, we're coming off that final deadline week last week from all House bills that have a chance of going over to the Senate have to pass the House floor. And vice versa for the Senate. So we sent basically around 380 bills for all the legislation that was filed in the House. 380 bills actually made it across the House floor and have been sent to the Senate. And the Senate has sent the House about 320 Senate bills. We'll take that. We'll take those bills, and those are being assigned this week to committees in the House, and they'll work back through the process. So you go from a high energy week on a deadline week to trying to maximize consideration of all pieces of legislation and shifting back to committee work this week, which is kind of a change of speed, and it'll ramp back up to the next deadline week, probably here in about 6 weeks. So budget negotiations and talks are ongoing, and at this point it becomes more of of a priority focus. Our appropriations team will hear from the Senate appropriations team and the governor, and as we engage our House members as to what the priorities of the budget that they'd like to see. But I'm happy. I'm very proud of the House and the work that they've done through this deadline week last week. All the House priorities have been sent over to the Senate, whether it regards broadband or whether it's stopping illegal grows in the state of Oklahoma on marijuana and standing up the regulatory framework going forward on medical marijuana and infrastructure for the state. So those priorities advanced, and we're hoping that the Senate will take those up quickly and get those on to the governor.
From where you were at the start of the year to where you're at right now, are you pleased with the pace, the accomplishments? Did this last week, when you sent those over to the Senate, that pretty much get where you wanted to be at this time of the session?
Yeah, we've the real priorities for the House this session coming in, listening to, talking about what our constituencies were focused on during the interim. Once again, regulatory framework for illegal grows in the state of Oklahoma, which are really rampant. There's over 8,000 grow licenses issued, and very little verification or enforcement on illegal operations, although that is ramping up. Rural broadband in the state was a priority. One of that bill has advanced to the Senate to establish a temporary statewide coordinator for that effort with ARPA monies that are coming to the state to deploy those for rural broadband, first in the unserved areas and then the underserved and then the served areas is a priority. Also, really excited that the industry came together and found a solution for pole attachment language that all utilities and providers throughout the state now have a agreed upon solution and methodology if one company wants to attach to somebody else's pole, which will ensure that we can reach the 95% plus people in the state of Oklahoma over the next 5 years with broadband. Also, the tax reform measures that options have advanced the House with the to combat the inflation that families in the state are experiencing, whether that be a grocery tax elimination, a moratorium, or a increased tax credit for families for help. Those will continue to be discussed, as well as on the personal income tax front, whether we should consider another a refund of money to the people of the state of Oklahoma. That measure passed the House, and also there's some other options on that, just whether or not to just lower the rate. Those will continue to be discussed, as well as the business sector, whether the elimination of the corporate tax over the next 8 years, as well as the business franchise tax in the state of Oklahoma. So all those conversation pieces have made it through the first 7 weeks of session, and so I would consider it a very successful session so far, and now we move to that next phase where we have to start refining those options and settling in on those, which ones were going to be part of the budget.
Congratulations on the broadband. I know that's been, you have been the biggest driver of this issue over the past several years. If you could, Mr. Speaker, take our folks behind the scenes. You'll be entering into negotiations, especially on the tax package with the Senate and with the governor. How often do you meet? How does it, if people are going, how does this work? How do you get the three leaders, the Senate, the House, and the governor together and get to a compromise measure, or something that you all three believes in the best interest of the state, plus your members? How does that work?
Well, for the House of Representatives, first and foremost, it's the budget process is a it's a process that we engage all the members of the House on, in terms of every member of the House of Representatives serves on an appropriations committee or subcommittee that has purview over a particular segment of the state's budget, and through their work and through the budget hearings, and also through work within the subcommittee members, they propose what the budget should be throughout each segment of the budget. Ultimately comes back to our full membership, our full caucus, and is presented, and it's vetted out again, and in terms of people's questions about a segment of the budget that maybe they weren't directly involved with in that committee. But and then ultimately at my level, it's just kind of and through the appropriations leadership of the House, it's kind of communicated to the Senate and to the governor, kind of where it looks like the membership of the House of Representatives would be in terms of a budget. The Senate will ultimately convey some of their priorities, as well as the governor, and you kind of see the governor's priorities and somewhat in the State of the State address, and he called for certain things there, but certainly things are fluid, and it's something we work on every day. I have breakfast with the governor and the Senate Pro Tem every Tuesday morning. We just finished that for this week, and anyway, there's policy and there's budget here in the legislative cycle and session, and we move through those, and the deadlines keep us on track and push everybody to get their work done timely.
Well, thanks for that insight, Mr. Speaker. Have a great week.
Hey, Scott, great to be with you again. You as well, and I look forward to seeing you next week.
Okay, so there's how that budget process works, and the big deal is the broadband gone over to the Senate. They're going to do something with that.
It's
How
huge.
important is that to the mission of ODMH?
Makes all the difference in the world, especially with what we're doing as far as outreach in the rural areas, using technology, using tablets that are so vitally important, linking with law enforcement. And we have tablets with law enforcement statewide, and they're able to use that when they engage with individuals in the community, actually link straight back to a clinician. The other real important part of that, it's also a tool for law enforcement who might be struggling, need to talk to somebody. They're able to access a clinician confidentially and be able to get some immediate feedback and link to services. It's a huge deal as we move along. It's going to be important for schools, but it's certainly important for healthcare and the direction we're going.
Such a thing as such a little thing. It's not little, but that aspect of being able to get for broadband providers to be able to access utility poles that had to be worked through. Okay, with some people some organizations that we'll get into a little bit later. But the fact is, everybody's pulling together on this. Speaker's made it a priority for several years, and it does not help that does not hurt rather that they've got all this ARPA money and all this money that's coming down for infrastructure. It's not lost on the fact that the entire delegation voted against it, but it's still coming to Oklahoma. And I just have to always quote Logan Phillips, Representative Logan Phillips, Republican, who, when I asked him way back there, what are you going to, the delegation's against this. And so what are you going to do with the money? He goes, spend every nickel on infrastructure.
Yeah, it's a great response.
It really is. And honest as the day is long. So Logan Phillips, who filed a couple of terms ago, he just filed and won a race he defeated the minority leader in the Oklahoma House of Representatives, a good guy, Representative Steve Copeland. Yep. But he's really been the driving force behind this. Also a veteran, and also working on issues on mental health.
And from Mounds, that's the most important thing.
Exactly.
So there are a lot of great people that come out of Mounds, Oklahoma.
You know about anybody else?
I a couple. I happen to know a few.
Okay, that sounds good. All right, last thing this evening. We've done this on this segment before, also the Monday night segment, also with the docs. that there is an issue that is woefully underreported. The media does do a good job of letting people know, in terms of there's been protest and carrying those aspects of dealing with the detention center. They will talk about deaths, and I think I saw something today that there have been as many deaths in the Oklahoma County Detention Center this year as New York City at their detention facility. It's not working. Okay, now we've documented. I don't know anybody else that's documented like we have. I took the tour, and we showed the photographs and the videos. They took a lot of the COVID money. They made changes to that building, but the fact is, this mission is, I'll see if you agree with this, far from completed. That building does not serve the purposes of criminal justice reform or mental health treatment. It's not happening. Okay. No. And so Commissioner Mon has been working diligently to try to fill the different buckets, as have other folks downtown. Mm-hmm. But he's really taken the lead to fill these buckets to build a facility without the taxpayers going into debt, raising taxes, that sort of thing, to take care of the needs of people going into that facility. There are a lot of issues about that, who should be there, a lot of issues about can't pay fines, whether it's safe or not. As Jeff Dismukes has said, you can't do mental health treatment in that building. And I think I know you stand by that one. Mm-hmm. So there's going to be some really big appointments coming up. A bond issue that's likely will be called this week from all the sources we have, and that's going to go on the ballot probably in the June primary. And if I'll quote Commissioner Mon on this, if this doesn't happen, it may not happen for a generation. And the question then becomes, how many deaths are people willing to put up with in that building? Frankly, Agree, Jeff?
Agree.
So the people of Oklahoma County are going to have a decision to make, and they'll have to decide yay or nay on this bond issue. There are other people, by the way, Representative Chris Kennedy and other folks that are working hard. I'm really, really impressed by his work, by the commissioner's work. They catch a lot of grief. They're leading the way on this. There's conspicuously a lot of people that you see out front on these are not here on this. The chamber's been out front. Leadership's been out front on this, like the commissioners, those folks, the committee that has been putting this together, community leaders. But we'll start next week. If things go forward with this bond issue, we're going to start each week. We'll have ourselves 2 or 3 times a week. We'll be talking about countdown to justice for the people going in there, justice for the patients, the population that has mental illness, which we've talked about for how long, Jeff? I mean, decades, right?
Yeah, this is a long time discussion with us.
So Countdown to Justice will debut next week if the bond issue goes forward, which we think that critical mass on that is going to be on the 4th. So you can find that our Monday, our Wednesday, maybe even our Saturday every other week streams. So we'll be doing that, Countdown to Justice, the segment. We'll have that dedicated to this topic starting next week. Knock wood.
Yeah.
Mr. Dismukes, great stream tonight. Appreciate your guests. And any last words?
Oh, no. I just appreciate the opportunity to be talking about these issues. For anybody that's listening, get us questions, and we'll be happy to answer them. And I need to point out too, Larry was back on with us tonight. So hello to Larry, regular listener, always engages
Thanks,
with us, and we appreciate it.
Exactly. Larry, appreciate your input every week. All right, that's it for us. We will see you Saturday morning. By the way, I should tease. I put up a picture on Twitter and Instagram today of a couple of folks that people got very used to seeing on Sunday mornings. I'm not going to give anything away right now, but the quote I put with that is, what's past is prologue. If you think back in Your Vote Counts history, there may have been a couple of characters you became very, very used to on Sunday mornings. Leader Eccles and Jason Dunnington are not on this weekend. So I would just say you probably ought to tune in Sunday morning to see some blasts from the past on Your Vote Counts. So we'll got more to say about that. Just stay tuned. For Jeff Dismukes, Scott Mitchell saying, have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.